Before I tell you this story, let me explain one word. A coup is when soldiers suddenly take over the government by force. No election, no voting, just guns. The soldiers arrest the leaders, they take over the radio stations, they announce that they are now in charge. Sometimes the leaders are killed, sometimes they are sent to prison, sometimes they escape. But one thing is always true. After a coup, the country is never the same.
Nzeogwu, can you please give me an account of the night of the coup in Kaduna?
Well, it's rather something like the longest day. We took our troops to the ground and taught them how to do night attacks. We didn't tell them what we were planning for. We didn't see him until the time we actually shot him. He ran away from his house when we fired the first few shots of anti-tank gun into the building. The whole roof was blown up and the place was set alight. Then we went to...
Now, imagine waking up to a gunfire in your neighborhood. You do not know who is shooting, you do not know why. But then, you hear the names of the dead. If you are from the north, you hear that the premier of the north, Ahmed Bello, was killed in his own home. His wife died beside him. If you are from the west, you hear that the premier of west, Ladoke Akintola, was gunned down in his own doorstep. If you are from the east, you hold your breath. You wait for the name of your leader, but your leader is still alive. No Igbo politicians was killed that night. Now ask yourself, how would you feel if your leader survived while others died? Would you feel lucky or would you feel afraid? This is what happened in Nigeria on January 15, 1966. Within months, soldiers killed soldiers, neighbors killed neighbors, families ran for their life. 1 million Igbos fled from the north to the east. They left everything behind, their businesses, their furnitures, their memories. Children saw their parents die, mothers watched their babies starve, men saw their life's work burnt to nothing. And here's the question that will haunt you for the rest of this video. If you were Igbo and your people are being killed in the north and your own government did nothing to stop it, what would you do? Would you stay in Nigeria or would you try to leave? This is not a story about politics. This is a story about what happens when trust between neighbors disappear. And once that trust is gone, it never fully returns. I'm Cormac and this is Cormac Explains. Let us go back to a time when Nigeria still had hope. October 1st, 1960, Nigeria is free. The British flag comes down, the Nigerian flag goes up. People dance in the streets. This is Africa's giant, they say. Rich in oil, rich in people, rich in hope. The British handed over power and say, you are ready, you can now govern yourselves. But here's the secret they did not tell you. The British did not build a nation, they built a house of cards. They took 3 very different groups and drew a line around them. The North, largest population, mostly Muslims, ruled by a powerful man named Ahmadu Bello. He was so strong that he refused to be the Prime Minister of Nigeria. He preferred to control the North directly. The East, Igbo, Christians, Albicians, they were producing doctors, lawyers, civil servants. They were the fastest growing region in the country. The West, Yoruba, rich in farmland but divided by their internal rivalries between different Yoruba leaders. Now, here is something that will surprise you. The first president of Nigeria was an Igbo man. His name was Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. The people called him Zik of Africa. Igbos controlled the army. The head of the army, General Agu Ironsi, was Igbo. Igbos controlled the civil service. Igbos were everywhere in government.
Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village to to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp.
The North looked at this and felt surrendered. These three groups were not friends. They were neighbors who had been forced to live together by a colonial power that drew lines on a map. When the British left, they removed the referee. After that, Nigerians had been fighting among themselves for power. Think about what that means. If you are from the North, you look at the East and see educated people who might take your jobs. If you are from the East, you look at the North and see a population that can control government forever. If you are from the West, you watch both of them and wonder which one will leave you behind. By 1964, elections were reached. Politicians who fought for independence now own mansions in London, while teachers could not afford bus fare. In 1965, a fake election in the West led to violence. The ruling party printed their own ballot in a bedroom. When the opposition protested, the government sent thugs. Houses were burned. Over 1,000 people were killed. 1,000 Nigerians killed by their own government over an election. The army watched all of this happen. The soldiers saluted their commanders and went back to their barracks. But inside those barracks, some soldiers were no longer sleeping. They were young, they were angry, they were watching their country die. And they asked themselves a question that would change everything. Why should we wait for politicians to destroy the country completely? Some of them decided not to wait. January 15, 1966, 3 o'clock in the morning, the soldiers moved at the same time in 5 different leaders. In Kano, Major Nzeogwu led the attack on the home of Ahmadu Bello. Bello was not just a politician. To millions of Northerners, he was the Sarduna of Sokoto, a title that carried spiritual weight. They believed he was chosen by God to lead them. When the soldiers arrived, Bello came to the door in his night robe. He had no weapon, no guard. He looked at Nzeogwu and asked, "What do you want?" Nzeogwu raised a rifle and fired. Bello failed. His wife was in the room. In the crossfire, she was killed too. One bullet ended a political leader. Another bullet ended a mother. In Lagos, the Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was dragged from his official car. Balewa was a poet, a teacher, a man who never wanted power. He was pushed into it by other leaders. A soldier pointed a rifle at his chest. Balewa said, "Please do not kill me, I have children." They shot him anyway. Then they left his body in the bushes near the road. A maid found him the next morning. In Ibadan, the Premier of the West, Chief Ladoke Akintola, heard a gunfire outside his house. He grabbed his own rifle, a hunting gun, and tried to fight back. He managed to shoot one soldier, but they were too many. He was shot multiple times. His body fell on his own doorstep. By 6 o'clock in the morning, 22 people were killed. Nigeria had no government. Major Nzeogwu went to the radio station. He made an announcement.
The rear of the house and started searching from room to room until we found him amongst the women and children, hiding himself. So we sort of took away the women and children and took him.
He said they were not fighting for power, they were fighting for justice. They were fighting for the common man. To those who were tired of corruption, he sounded like a hero. But here is the detail that the history books do not always emphasize enough. Of the 22 people killed, only one was Igbo. The rest were from the north and the west. No Igbo politicians died that night. The coup plotters had a Yoruba member. Major Adewale Ademoyaga was part of the plan. Nzeogwu himself was Igbo by blood, but he was raised in the north. He spoke Hausa fluently. He had many close friends who were northern Muslims. They said they were targeting corrupt leaders no matter their tribe. But the north did not care about explanations. What they saw was their leaders dead, their holy man murdered in his home, their prime minister shot on the road, and every single Igbo politician still alive. The north asked a question that would change everything. Why was no Igbo politicians killed? That question burned in their minds. It spread through the north like wildfire. And before the year ended, that question would be answered with bullets. You see, General Ironsi, the most senior army officer, was Igbo. He stopped the coup. He arrested the majors. He took power for himself. Now the north looked at the new government. The head of the state was Igbo. The army commander was Igbo. Many of the top officials were Igbo, and the men who killed their leaders were mostly Igbo. Ironsi said, "I'm not an Igbo leader, I'm a Nigerian leader." But the North did not believe him. And then, in May 1966, Ironsi did something that terrified them. He announced the Decree Number 34. He abolished the regional system. He made Nigeria one unified state. The North saw this as destruction in their power. They believed it was proof that the Igbos were taking over. Ironsi thought he was uniting the country. Instead, he was lighting a fire. And the North was ready to burn. What happened next was not a coup, it was revenge. The North did not forget, they did not forgive. They watched as an Igbo general took power. They watched as the men who killed their leaders sat in comfortable prisons instead of facing firing squads. They watched as their religion lost control of the government. And then Ironsi did one thing that made all of their fear feel real. Decree Number 34. He abolished the regional system. No more North, East and West. One country, one government, one army. On paper, it sounded like unity, but to the North, it sounded like a conquest. If there were no regions, they asked to themselves, how can we protect our power? They believed the Igbos had finally taken over. Ironsi thought he was building a new Nigeria. Instead, he was digging a grave. On July 1923, in 1966, the North struck back. This time, it was not politicians. This time, it was soldiers. Northern officers gathered in secret. They planned their revenge. They called it a counter-coup. A coup to undo the first coup. In the early mornings, they attacked military barracks across the country. In Abeokuta, in Ibadan, in Lagos, in Kaduna, in Kano, they killed over 240 southern soldiers. Most of them were Igbos. General Ironsi was in Ibadan that night. He was visiting a Yoruba officer, Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle Fajuyi. Northern soldiers surrounded the building they were staying. They demanded that Fajuyi hand over Ironsi. Fajuyi refused. He said, "I will not betray my guest." They killed them both, Ironsi and Fajuyi together. A man who refused to betray his guest died for loyalty. The man who wanted to unite Nigeria died in a backyard. Northern soldiers and civilians began hunting Igbo people across the north. Not soldiers, ordinary people, men, women, children. In Kano, in Kaduna, in Zaria, in Jos, mobs went from house to house. Find the Igbos, they killed them in their homes, on the roads, inside the church, at markets. Between 8,000 to 30,000 Igbo civilians died in those months. The exact number is unknown because no one counted. They were not people, they were bodies. Then the trains began to arrive in the east. What those trains carried will break your heart, and it will make you understand why Biafra was born. After the coup counter, the killings did not stop, it got worse. This was not a war, this was a pogrom, organized killing of a specific group of people. Let me tell you about one of them. There was a pregnant woman walking to the market in the north. A mob stopped her on the road. They asked her, "Are you Igbo?" She said yes. I will not describe what they did to her, I cannot. But her story is not unique, it happened thousands of times. General Gowon went on the radio. He said, "I received complaints every day that Easterns living in the north are being killed and attacked, and their property are being stolen. I'm very unhappy about this." That was all he said. The killings continued. Because Gowon was not in control, the northern soldiers and mob were. Then the trains began to arrive in the east. About 1 million Igbos fled from the north to the east. They left everything behind. Their homes, their businesses, their furnitures, their memories. They packed themselves into trains, truck, and any vehicle that could move. Some did not survive the journey. Those who did survive arrived with nothing, just the clothes on their backs and the trauma on their head. Children had seen their parents die. Mothers watched their baby die. Men had seen their life work burned to nothing on the ground. They arrived in the east with stories that no human being should ever have to tell. They asked themselves one question: does Nigeria still want us? For millions of Easterners, the answer was no. And when you believe your own country no longer wants you, you stop wanting that country. The military governor of the East was a man named Ojukwu. He was the son of Nigerian's first billionaire, educated at Oxford, proud, intelligent, and now terrified for his own people. He watched the killings. He watched the people flee from the East. He watched the federal government almost do nothing. He asked Gowon, "What are you going to do to protect my people?" Gowon promised safety, but the killings continued. Ojukwu stopped believing. He said, "If Nigeria will not protect us, we will protect ourselves." Now he faced an impossible choice: stay and trust the government that lets his people die, or leave and risk a war. Either way, people would die. What he decided next would change Nigeria forever. Imagine you are Ojukwu. You are the military governor of the eastern region. You have the power, you have influence, you have a duty to protect your people. But your people are dying. Every day, more bodies arrived on train from the north. Every day, more families show up on your door with nothing. Every day, the federal government promises safety but delivers nothing. You call Gowon, you say, "When will you stop the killings?" Gowon say, "Soon, be patient, we are working on it." But the killings do not stop. The trains keep coming. What do you do? Ojukwu had two options. Option 1, stay in Nigeria, trust the federal government, hope that killings stop, hope that his people will be safe, hope that Gowon keeps his promises. But hope was becoming harder to believe. Option 2, leave Nigeria, declare the East an independent country, protect his people himself. But if he did that, there would be a war. Think about that choice. If he stays, his people might be killed again. The massacre could continue. The North might never stop hunting Igbo. If he leaves, there will be a war. Soldiers will die, families will be torn apart, children will starve. Either way, people will die. Either way, he would carry the weight of those deaths for the rest of his life. And here is the part that makes this story so tragic. Ojukwu did not want war. He was not a warmonger. He was a man who had run out of options. He watched his people suffer. He watched the federal government fail. He watched the world do nothing. And he decided that he would rather die fighting than watch his people be slaughtered. But before he made that final choice, there was one last chance for peace. January 1967, Aburi, Ghana. The leaders of Nigeria met to stop the country from falling apart. Ojukwu came from the east. Gowon came from the federal government. They sat across from each other at the same table. The goal was simple: reduce tensions, restructure power, and avoid war. For days they talked, for days they argued. Finally, they reached an agreement. The agreement gave more power to the regions, less control to the center. Ojukwu believed that they had a deal, a real deal, a deal that could save Nigeria. He returned to the east and told his people, "We have peace. The war will not come." The people cheered, they hugged each other, they cried tears of relief. For a moment, there was hope. But here is where the story becomes heartbreaking. Both sides read the same document. Both sides understood it differently. Ojukwu believed that the regions now had major autonomy. He believed the central government could not interfere with them. They had only agreed to temporary military arrangements. They believed the central government still had the final authority. Ojukwu said, "You promised one thing, now you are doing another." Gowon said, "This is not what we agreed to." Trust was already broken by the coups and the massacres. Now, even the agreement that was supposed to bring peace became another reason to fight. Imagine being Ojukwu. You try to negotiate, you reach a deal, you go home and tell your people that the suffering is over. Then the other side changes the rules. What would you do? But for a moment, there was hope again, but hope would not last. Gowon said, "Biafra is still part of Nigeria. We will use force to bring them back." The first bullets of the war were about to be fired. But Gowon did not accept Biafra. He said, "Biafra is still part of Nigeria. We will use force to bring them back." In July 1967, federal troops moved into Biafran territory. Ojukwu ordered his soldiers to defend. The first bullets were fired. The war had begun. The Nigerian government thought the war would be over in weeks. They had more soldiers, they had more weapons, they had more money. Biafra was so small, surrounded on all sides. No seaports, no allies, no chance. But Biafra did not surrender. They fought. They built homemade tanks from trucks plated with armor. They made bombs from casings filled with nails, broken bottles and kerosene. They had a single bomber plane that became a terror to the Nigerian army. For months, they held the line. But holding the line was not enough. The Nigerian government changed its strategy. They stopped trying to win battles. They decided to starve the Biafrans into surrender. They blocked all food and medicine from entering Biafra. No ships, no trucks, no planes, nothing. The blockade was complete. By 1969, Biafran children were eating leaves from trees, grass from grounds, moss from the rivers. Their stomachs became swollen from a disease called kwashiorkor. Their hair turned to orange because they had no protein. 1 million children died of starvation. No bullets, no bombs. Starvation. The world watched. Photographs of starving Biafran children appear in newspapers in London, New York, Paris. People around the world were horrified. They sent money, they sent food, they sent help, they sent medicine. But the Nigerian government blocked almost all of it. The world was horrified, but the war did not stop the war. In January 1970, Biafra surrendered. Ojukwu fled to Ivory Coast. 3 million Biafrans were dead, most of them were children. And Nigeria, even though it had won the war, was a country that would never fully recover. So what broke Nigeria? Not one bullet, not one man, not one event. It was a chain. Political corruption, January coup, ethnic suspicion, killings of civilians, counter-coup, loss of trust, failed negotiations, secession, war. Each step made the next step more likely. Each step added more fear. Each step broke more trust. The January coup was not an Igbo plot. The plotters had a Yoruba member. They were young officers who hated corruption. Nzeogwu himself was Igbo by blood, but he was raised in the north. He spoke Hausa fluently. He had close friends who were northern Muslims. But the north believed it was an Igbo coup, and that belief became blood. Perceptions became stronger than truth. If the North had not killed Igbo civilians, the war might never have happened. If Ironsi had not announced Decree number 37, the North might not have felt so threatened. If Gowon has kept his promise at Aburi, the East might have stayed in Nigeria. If Ojukwu had agreed to compromise, the war might have been avoided. But none of those things happened, because when fear takes over, people stop thinking, they stop listening, they stop seeing each other as human. That is what broke Nigeria. Not the coups alone, not the killings alone, not the war alone. It was the loss of trust between different groups of people, and trust once broken is very hard to rebuild. The men who planned the January coup were all dead. Major Nzeogwu was killed in 1967. He was not killed during the coup. He was killed during the Civil War while fighting for Biafra. He was only 30 years old. General Ironsi was 42 when the northern soldiers shot him at the backyard. Ojukwu died in 2011. He was an old man when he died. The Nigerian government had forgiven him long before his death. The fear that started in 1966 never left Biafra. It was passed down from parents to their children, from those children to their own children. Every election in Nigeria since the war had been fought along ethnic lines. Politicians used the memory of 1966 to win votes. They said to their supporters, "Vote for us or the other tribe will kill you," just like they did in 1966. And many people believe these politicians because the fear is still real. The first bullet was not fired by Nigeria. The first bullet was fired when Nigeria stopped trusting Nigerians. And that bullet is still flying through the air today. The coup that broke Nigeria had happened in 1966, but the country is still breaking. Every election, every protest, every time a politician says, "Our tribe versus their tribe," the bullet is still flying. One more thing. So who was Nigeria's first billionaire? Why was his name erased from history? And what happened to his empire? That story will change how you see Ojukwu's name forever. Click the video on your screen right now. I will see you there.